The Young Robber Chief. There lived a poor peasant whose wife had died, leaving him with 3 sons. When they were grown, he said sadly, "I have no money to give you. Go out into the world and seek your fortunes, my sons, and heaven be with you." He walked with them to the crossroads where the road branched into 3, and there he bade them farewell. The youngest son took the road to the right. He walked all day and by evening entered a dark forest. A terrible storm arose, thunder echoing through the trees. Seeing a light shining nearby, he made his way toward it and found a small hut. Inside the hut stood an old woman before a blazing fire. "I seek shelter from this storm," said the lad. "May I stay for the night?" "It will go badly for you if you do," warned the old woman. "This house belongs to a band of robbers." "Oh, that doesn't matter," replied the youth. "If that is all, I will stay." Soon they heard the robbers return. While they ate, the old woman told them how the lad had come for shelter. "Has he any money?" asked one. "No," she said. "He is a poor peasant lad." "What shall we do with him?" asked another. "Should we let him go, now he knows our hideout?" At that moment, the young man entered. "Do you need a servant?" he asked. "My name is Hans, and I will work hard if you let me stay." The robber chief looked him up and down and said, "Stay then." "But first," said the chief, "prove you accept our profession. A peasant with 3 oxen goes to market at dawn. Steal one without harming him." At dawn, Hans took a shoe with a gold buckle from the old woman and set it beside the road. He hid and waited as the peasant came leading his ox. The peasant stopped. "What a fine shoe! If only there were 2. He shook his head and walked on. Hans picked up the shoe, ran through the trees, and placed it farther along the road. When the peasant saw it, he cried, "Here is the other shoe," and went back for the first, only to find both shoe and ox gone. The robbers were astonished by Hans's skill. "If you steal the second ox without harming the man, you shall join us," said the leader. Hans set out again, this time taking the hilt of a dagger. He lay by the road, pretending to be dead, the dagger visible in his coat. When the peasant passed, he sighed, "Poor fellow, murdered by brigands." Hans leapt ahead through the trees and lay down again farther on. "Another one!" cried the peasant. A third time Hans did the same. The confused peasant tied his ox to a tree to look back, and Hans stole it away. The robbers were amazed. "If you steal the 3rd ox, we will make you our chief," they said. Next day Hans hid in the wood. When the peasant came with the last ox, Hans began to bellow softly like an animal in the trees. The peasant thought, "That is the sound of my other oxen." He tied the 3rd ox to a tree and went searching in the forest. In a flash, Hans slipped out, untied the animal, and led it quietly away. Hans was made the robber chief, yet they did not want the oxen, so he let them loose to return home, which greatly pleased the poor peasant. The next day, when the robbers went out, Hans stayed behind, saying he was tired. Then he dressed himself in fine clothes and went to see his father. "Now that I am a robber chief," he said, "go to the judge, our neighbor, and tell him I wish to marry his daughter." With great hesitation the old man went. The judge burst into laughter. "If this robber chief can steal the joint of meat from my oven tomorrow, he may marry her." Next day Hans disguised himself as a beggar and went to the judge's house carrying a sack with 3 hares inside. He stood outside, begging for alms. Everyone was in the kitchen guarding the joint, but the kitchen boy threw him a few coins from the window. Hans hid behind the garden wall and released 1 hare into the yard. Everyone saw the hare, and the judge, fond of jugged hare, exclaimed, "If only we could catch it." Hans waited, then let a 2nd hare run. Excitement grew inside the kitchen. When he loosed the 3rd hare, none could resist. All rushed out of the door after it. Quietly, Hans slipped into the kitchen and stole the joint from the oven. When the household returned breathless, the meat was gone. The judge, bound by his promise, allowed Hans to marry his daughter, but he made Hans swear never again to live as a robber. "I only became a brigand for fun," Hans said with a smile. "Now I will gladly live honestly." He kept his word. The robbers vanished into legend, and Hans worked hard beside his father. He and his wife lived peacefully for many years. Thus the poor peasant's youngest son, through wit and courage, found both love and wisdom. The people who once feared him came to honor him as a man of sense and kindness. And so ended the tale of the young robber chief. Moral: true cleverness is not in deceit, but in learning when to change one's path. Wisdom and honesty bring lasting peace, while greed and trickery fade like shadows in the forest.